Satnam everybody and welcome to the Human Truth channel, where no topic is off the table.
I grew up working for my father from the time I was 9. At that time in California, apparently there was no child protective services.
You brought the D-O-double-G, Snoop Dogg.
Snoop really gave another side of who he is that I think a lot of people didn't realize. Whether you're going to go into real estate or lobbying or manufacturing, whatever it may be, it has to be unwavering drive.
One thing that stood out to me was your knack for dad jokes and how you keep the atmosphere super light and joyful, while ensuring that we still achieve our goals.
Accounting is a language of business.
I know you always talk about how your network is your net worth.
You're not here to have an entry-level job for the rest of your life. So work from 5 to 9 on you, 9 to 5 for somebody else, and then 5 to 9 again on you again, which is really, really hard.
Satnam everybody and welcome to the Human Truth channel, where no topic is off the table. I'm your host, Aditya Raj Vardhan, and today we have Professor Albert Napoli joining us for the first episode of the Human Truth channel. Professor Napoli, welcome to the show.
Well, thank you very much, Adi. I'm very, very happy to be here. Hey, before we start, you said a word at the beginning, and I assume it's not English.
Yes.
What was that?
Satnam?
Yes, Satnam.
Absolutely. I'm glad you asked me that. So Satnam actually means truth is my identity. So Sat represents truth. Nam means name. So truth is my identity. And it's a greeting I've adopted ever since I started my spiritual practice here at USC, taking the Kundalini yoga class. Furthermore, this is the Human Truth channel where no topic is off the table. Here we have raw, authentic conversations with guests. And the whole idea is that our listeners, wherever they are, whenever they hear something being discussed on the Human Truth channel, deep inside, it resonates with them and they know that this is the truth.
Sure. Excellent. And what language is that?
So that's transliteration from Hindi, Sanskrit.
Okay. Yeah. Nice. Excellent.
Yeah. Cheers. So today I'm honored to welcome a very special guest. He's my mentor and dear friend, Professor Albert Napoli. And, I want to just start off by sharing a quick story about how I know Professor Napoli. So I first learned about you, Professor Napoli, when I think it was about 4 years back when I was serving in the military in Singapore. I was applying to colleges and researching the top business programs in the US when I came across your profile. I even wrote about you, in fact, in my Why USC essay, which asked me about, why I want to come to USC. I come from a family business, as you know, and you teach the infamous entrepreneurial family business class. Right. As you say, group therapy.
Yes, the group therapy, twice a week.
Exactly. And, fast forward to today, it's been an absolute privilege not only to be under your tutelage and guidance, but also to get to know you on a personal level. You're a very inspiring man, and, it's so good to be in your presence and to have you here today.
Well, thank you.
So when I first took your class, sir, one thing that stood out to me was your knack for dad jokes and how you keep the atmosphere super light and joyful, while ensuring that we still achieve our goals. You truly make learning enjoyable.
Well, thank you.
Now, for those of you who don't know, Professor Napoli is a powerhouse in the world of entrepreneurship. He is an award-winning lecturer of clinical entrepreneurship at the USC Lloyd Greif Center for Entrepreneurship. He's been teaching at USC for, I believe, 16 years now.
In January, it'll be 18 years.
18 years,
yes.
Okay. And he's taught transformative classes like entrepreneurial family business, feasibility analysis, and venture initiation. Next semester, Professor Napoli is going to be taking a select group of Trojans across the world to India to meet with entrepreneurs and gain a global business perspective. Having been a student, I can confidently say that he's one of the best professors at USC, a sentiment echoed by his peers and students, evidenced only by his 2-time win of the prestigious Golden Apple Award and his victory in the Mayor's Cup competition hosted by the city of Los Angeles. Outside of teaching, Professor Napoli keeps himself quite busy. I know you have a new initiative, which is mirroring YPO.
Right.
And you also serve on the board of directors for the Greater Irvine Chamber of Commerce, North Orange County Chamber of Commerce, the California Association of Realtors, and the National Association of Realtors.
Right, exactly.
You're also a dedicated mentor, helping students scale their initiatives and providing them a platform to gain funding through the New Venture Seed competition that you host annually.
Correct.
Wow, that's quite the resume, Professor Napoli.
Thank you very much. I keep busy.
I know your schedule is incredibly demanding, sir. Thank you so much for taking the time to be here, and let's jump right in.
Absolutely. I need a hype man like you every time I go out and speak. So thank you, Adi. I appreciate it.
Cheers. So, sir, let's start from understanding how, your journey from being an heir to a restaurant business to becoming a professor at USC. It's so inspiring. Can you share what inspired such a significant transformation?
Well, I wish I could point to one single thing that's to say, well, that was it. But I'm not fortunate to have that. Actually, I'm much more fortunate to have this kind of long drawn out story that where like many people, many people your age, I thought I knew what I wanted in life, until life kind of pushed back, and the journey went from maybe being part of my family's business to probably having it be the best thing in the world to not be part of my family's business and do my own thing.
Okay. How is that so?
Well, so I grew up. Both my parents are immigrants to the United States. Both of them are from the island of Sicily in Italy. My mother came over after World War II. My father came over in the mid-'60s. They met, and 6 months later they were married, and a couple years later they had me. I grew up in a very traditional Sicilian household, circa 1945. English is my second language. I grew up in this bubble that was mostly my grandparents, and being immigrants, not having a very good education. My grandparents and my parents saw two ways to actually enhance your life, and one was education, the other one was entrepreneurship. And so I grew up working for my father from the time I was 9. At that time in California, apparently there was no child protective services. So I worked for my father. Luckily, it was not in a factory or anything like that, but he's an accountant by trade. So I worked on this thing called a typewriter.
Okay.
You can Google
Classic.
that. Yes, I know. You can Google that. Doing profit and loss statements and financial statements for him. And he had this dream, and for a bit of time, I had this dream as well, to join the family business and have my brothers come along. And I found that I too am entrepreneurial in that as much as I love my father, I couldn't work for him. But between my grandparents and my parents, who are all entrepreneurs, with the exception of my mother, who was a school teacher, which actually kind of plays into my story as well. I said, I need to do it my thing, my way, even if I make mistakes.
Beautiful. So you pretty much had entrepreneurship and, the basic fundamentals of entrepreneurship around you. You were looking at a lot of income statements, balance sheets, right, with your father at a very young age. How do you think that played a role in bringing you to where you are today?
It played a huge role. For all my business students, all my entrepreneurship students, clients, people that just randomly wanted to talk to me about entrepreneurship, I tell them that accounting is a language of business. And even if you don't intend on being an entrepreneur, let's say you're going to the greatest university in the history of the universe, the University of Southern California, and fight on. And you're not here to, with the amount of money that is being spent on your education, you're not here to have an entry-level job for the rest of your life. I'm sure that everyone, regardless of their major, wants to rise and lead and manage and maybe start their own company. And no matter where you are on that spectrum, accounting is the key. And so by learning accounting at such a young age and learning what numbers can say, it really showed me how to evaluate performance, how to evaluate companies, how to evaluate companies that want to sell, and if you give me a couple of years worth of income statements that are true, that are not maybe a little jerry rigged, I can tell you how a company is doing and where it's lacking.
Wow. So you started off doing a lot of this when you were a teenager, I assume?
Yes. So, I couldn't analyze when I was a teenager, but I read a lot when I was a teenager.
So let's talk a little bit about how that move happened when you were a student at USC doing your undergraduate, I believe, in the 80s. Mm-hmm. And from there, what was your first career, and how did you end up where you are as a teacher as a professor at USC?
Okay, so I started working at 9 for my father, and then
9 years of age.
9 years of age, because my dad just, typical immigrant, needed someone, couldn't quite afford someone, and he has this son that seems to know how to use the typewriter. So let's get him
That's board. A win-win. Now.
That's right. And then when I was 13, I don't know if I've told you this, but when I was 13, I went to go work for my godfather, who had a shoe repair business.
Okay.
So I managed his shoe repair store from nuts to bolts, from dealing with clients to ordering materials.
Wow.
and using the heavy machinery there. And that was right up until high school. Then when I started to drive at about 16 or so, my father being an accountant, having all these different types of clients, most of his clients were mom and pop Italian restaurants.
Got you.
And he also had a friend who was one of the largest cheese manufacturers in the nation. Okay. Totally random.
All right. Is this a name our audience would be familiar with?
No. Mason Cheese. They no longer exist, but they made cheese for like Costco and Kraft, and it was under their labels, but they manufactured it all. And so the owner liked me, and my dad saw an opportunity for me that I didn't see. So what my dad said was, go to my friend Morris. Morris will sell you cheese cheaper, mozzarella cheese cheaper than he sells it to Costco.
Wow.
Then I'm going to give you all these clients, and you can sell them. And it's basically you're the middleman that everyone needs, because you can't go buy directly from the cheese manufacturer. So that's where I first learned of arbitrage, and that's where I learned of profit margins. And while I was here at USC, I had a little Nissan Sentra that once or twice a week had a few 100 pounds of cheese in it that I would deliver. And that was my true first entrepreneurial journey. I made the silly mistake of saying, I have a college degree now, so I have to do something much more formal. But I think if I stayed with that business, I mean, it was a cash business, very liquid. I could have probably retired a long time ago, but that's okay. No worries about that. From there, I graduated college, and I went to work for a real estate developer. Okay. So I graduated from college in 1989. I went to work for a real estate developer, and then in about 1991, there was a small little recession, and I was laid off. And so what do you do during times of crisis? You find opportunity.
Absolutely.
And so what I did then was I had some money saved up, and I opened up my own business, again, leveraging who I know and what I know. I rented out a room in my father's office and started a real estate business there.
Wow.
That grew, and eventually I had 15 employees, was really doing well, and I hated it.
Why was that so?
So the money was good. I mean, but I didn't like the type of people that were in the industry. They were either very shark-like,
right,
or very naive with people's money. And, when you're dealing with apartment buildings, that's one set of people you're dealing with. But when you're dealing with like a person buying their first home,
right,
the person representing them, the realtors, they're not trained very well. The standard to get a license is very low, and they're making they're advising people on financial decisions that affect their entire life. And I had come to USC. I had taken these finance classes. My major was in real estate finance and economics, and I couldn't believe what some of these people were doing. And so I just said, I got a dip, as the kids would say. So that's where I transitioned.
Sorry, Professor, before we transition to the next chapter, I want to know what kind of real estate did you do primarily? Was it just residential?
No, it was residential and commercial. Did a variety of different things, from managing properties to brokerage to investment. So it ran the gamut.
Wow. So you were doing pretty much all of this stuff 2 years after graduating from college?
Starting 2 years after graduating from college. And when I started hitting my stride was probably 10 years after graduating, 12 years after graduating from college. And so I know I'm just rambling. You need to stop me.
Audrey. No, please. This is gold. This
All right.
Gold.
And so after that, I got into, I really saw I had a knack for talking to elected officials, and I became a lobbyist.
A lobbyist. And this was, I think, in the early 2000s, right?
Correct. In the early 2000s.
This was after you had sold your business?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you started a real estate company, did it for about ballpark 10 years?
More than 10 years. Yes.
More than 10 years, where you did management, residential, commercial, and then you became a lobbyist.
Yes.
And I believe that was for water, if I'm not mistaken.
Well, it first started with real estate, and then it transitioned into water.
So what's it like being a lobbyist?
So it's great. You just hand out cash to everybody. No, I'm just kidding. No, please.
The cheese man and the money man.
That's right. Edit that in post. No, it's actually a lot of fun, because you are debating policy and you're educating elected officials on your version of the policy and how you see it. You see it for your client, and trying to show them. You're trying to show them how if they vote a certain way on a bill, how it would impact their community, their constituents.
Gotcha.
So it's mental jousting, which is really fun.
Wow. So that's quite the start of a career. Do you have any advice for students who might want to get out there? Real estate is, something that so many of my peers at USC right now are interested in.
Right.
Any advice for them who, you scaled it within 10 years, sir,
right,
to 15, managing so many things and then becoming a lobbyist? What does it take on the back end to get to that level?
It takes unwavering drive, not just in real estate, but in anything. Whether you're going to go into real estate or lobbying or manufacturing, whatever fashion, whatever it may be, it has to be an unwavering drive. And I have so many students that want to be entrepreneurs, but most of them are in love with the idea of being an entrepreneur and not what it takes to be an entrepreneur.
Exactly. So can you share with our listeners today, I know you always talk about how your network is your net worth.
Amen. Yes.
Amen. Yes. And for you, when you were starting off, especially right after college, I'm sure your network was not as big as it is today.
No, not at all.
So what was a day in your life like, and how did you grow it to where it is today?
So what I did when I was young, young and naive, I didn't know any better. If there was a networking event, I just went to it. And despite what you may think, when I was young, especially your age, I was real hesitant to go up to and talk to people.
Really?
Yes.
I could not imagine that.
I know. I grew out of it, got over myself. But what I would do is just kind of, when there were a group of people talking, I would go there and just listen. And I spent more time listening than talking. And what I found is that I have a very curious mind. I love to know about people. And so when there was an opportunity, I would just start asking questions, and not in an interrogation mode, but more like the kind of questions you're asking me today.
Insatiable curiosity.
And so I went to a lot of these networking things and just would ask questions purely for the sake of getting to know a person, and not what can I get from him or her. And slowly but surely, people, I'd see the same people and we'd talk. And a funny thing is when you ask a person about themselves, most people love talking about themselves.
Absolutely.
And so those people that I kept talking to, who are truly neat, cool, great people, continued to talk with me at other events and would introduce me to other people. And slowly my network started to grow. And the thing I see today, especially with people your age, is like, what do I talk to them about? I have nothing in common. What do I talk to them about? Just have a curious mind.
I would like to take a moment to quote Dale Carnegie. Have you read one of his books?
It's been a long time since I read one of those books, but that's the OG networker right there.
Absolutely. I was gifted his book, How to Win Friends and Influence People, by my aunt, as well as one of my friends back in high school. I'm proud to say I've read it cover to cover about 6-7 times now.
That's great. Excellent.
And it's such a phenomenal book, sir, because it explains basic human psychology so well, and in ways which, we would have never imagined.
Right, exactly.
So did that book help you to, ask questions that elicited emotions, made people want to talk about themselves, and really help you grow your network?
So at that time, I read a lot of those types of books.
Okay.
Og Mandino, Dale Carnegie, and it wasn't very much, I wasn't so much very, and I hate to use this word, calculated with my questions, but just kind of like, more of like, just go in there. Don't be a jerk.
Right.
And just go in there and meet people and make friends. And so as you've heard me tell classes before, when I go and meet people, it's not like, I met Adi. Gee, I wonder what I can get from him.
Right.
It's always like, I just met Adi. He's a pretty cool guy. I'd like to hang out with him. And then later down the line, if there is something, then there is something. But I don't go in with should I talk to Adi or not based on who he is or what he has.
Absolutely. In fact, you taught me something very important about a year ago. You taught me that I must always go and plant seeds.
Right.
And just water them every day and see which one germinates.
Right. Yeah. And that's how relationships work. I mean, and it's going to take, just like a plant, it's going to take a while.
Right.
But again, you can't expect anything. And if you ever go into a relationship with a quid pro quo type of mentality, that's not a relationship. And people feel that all the time.
Absolutely. And I think times are changing a lot because, some parts of the world, especially where I come from, Singapore and Nepal, I saw a lot of quid pro quo relationships where, it was like, I scratch your back, you scratch mine. Made sense to a certain extent.
Correct.
But I think there's definitely a big shift in global culture values with Gen Z especially. The TikTok generation has definitely no patience and attention span to take it the slow way.
No, exactly. And so there is a shift, and I think just an overall mind shift, culture shift into being your true authentic self, which I think a lot of people still have hard time doing. Not for nefarious reasons, but just being vulnerable is difficult.
Absolutely. You got to confront your demons in the process.
That's right. Exactly.
It's not easy. Much easier to distract.
Much easier to distract. Much easier to show the version of you that you want people to see.
Absolutely.
So I think that's a good thing, actually.
Nice. So let's get back to where you were. You told me about how you were a lobbyist.
Yes.
And what happened in that role? What was it like? And how did that bring you to become a professor at USC?
Oh, I mean, yes. It's so I was a lobbyist there. I was a lobbyist, and I was good because, as maybe you can hear, I'm kind of rizzy. Sorry, that made me laugh. That made me laugh. Don't cut that. So I'm just good with people. And I thought, okay, you know what? I'm going to go back and get my MBA and maybe go work for a big PR firm and rise the ranks. So I came back here to get my degree, and all that getting my MBA did was confuse me even more about what I wanted to be.
Really?
Yes. And because I had friends that were going to investment banking, into tech, into healthcare, and everything is a bright, shiny object to me.
And I know how much you love investment banking.
Oh, like watching grass grow. That's how much I like it. But anyway, but while I was here, the last class that I took at USC was called the business plan class. They don't have a business plan. The business plan. Okay. So they don't have a business plan. It's the 454 class, which is venture initiation.
Got you.
And so the professor who was teaching it was a newish professor called David Belasco.
Professor Belasco, I know him.
Yes.
I'm in a couple of his classes.
Yes.
Good guy.
Very great guy. So Professor Belasco was my professor. And this was in January of 2007, spring 2007. He was my professor. And he was only a few years older than me. I was one of the older kids in class.
How old were you?
I was 39 at the time. I was 38, almost 39.
Wow.
And even back then, when he was newish, he still had incredible classes with incredible speakers. And he and I became friends. And I told him, I said, Dave, if you ever need help teaching a class, I'm your man, and I'll do it for free. So I graduated in May of 2007. He and I stayed in touch. And then right after Christmas into the new year, he sends me an email and said, were you serious about helping me? I said, absolutely. He goes, great. Fill out this paperwork. We start in 2 weeks.
Wow.
So in 2008, I started teaching with him. And I think technically we co-taught, but it was definitely his class and I was just helping out.
Were you like a TA or?
I wasn't quite a TA, but I wasn't the professor either.
Got you. So somewhere in the between.
So somewhere in this gray area is where I was. Because I led some of the discussions and because I was older, because I had all this experience, I could actually answer questions about business plans and such.
Got you.
And I fell in love with teaching right away. And I guess maybe that goes back to my mother, who was a teacher for 38 years. And we had, let's see, so we had this class. We were doing great. The head of the department said, hey, Albert, Dave tells me you're doing a great job. I'm thinking about this class for undergrads. Would you like to put it together and teach it in the fall of 2008?
Wow.
And I had never taught a class by myself. I've never put curriculum together by myself. And as a good entrepreneur, when he said, do you want to do it? I said, absolutely. I can figure it all out. And that's what I did. I kind of figured it out, started a class of my own in the fall of 2008. And here I am sitting with you.
Wow. So
in the studio.
It sounds like Professor Velasco gave you one of the most transformative Christmas gifts.
Absolutely. He definitely did. And every January I remind him and say thank you. So it's been great.
And it is Thanksgiving weekend. So
it is Thanksgiving weekend.
How nice.
I know, exactly.
So what was it like, Professor, for you to finally be on the other side of the classroom for the first time, developing curriculum? What's that process like?
Oh, it's scary.
Okay.
It's scary. I mean, I thought
it'll be easier, less daunting. You don't have to turn in the assignments this time.
Don't have to turn in the assignments, but when you're a new professor, again, this going back to entrepreneurship, and just business in general, when you first start doing something, you have imposter syndrome.
Right.
And so as I taught and I saw all these eyes looking back at me, all I could think of is, oh, they know I'm full of shit. They know I'm lying. They know I don't know anything. And so it was daunting to just try to maybe shove too much information all at once. And it probably takes 3 to 4 classes that you teach before you become comfortable. And once I became comfortable, then it was like, okay, I got this. And you've been in my classes, and you've been a student in a few of my classes. And so I know what students think. None of you like to read. None of you like taking tests. And most of you are bored to death during class.
Absolutely.
And so I wanted to change that paradigm. I wanted to make classes upbeat, where you still learn, where it's experiential.
Absolutely.
And because I feel, and I think there's actually research that shows that you learn more from doing than you do from cramming for tests 36 hours before the exam.
Exactly. Let's talk about that for a sec,
Sure.
Because when I was applying to USC as well, one of my biggest things about where I would want to go to college is a place which would allow me to have action-based learning. Right. If you look at the traditional education system, which has been largely unchanged in over 120 years.
Maybe 520 years.
Perhaps, right? It's basically like how much information and facts can you memorize and, just regurgitate it on a piece of paper.
Right.
And, the thing about our brains is that our brains are so efficient that once a piece of information no longer serves us, it deletes it.
Right.
So we give a test, and we think like we know marketing now or we know finance now, but after the exam, it's blank.
Right.
And it's so great that you take this approach. And, quick shout out to Professor Napoli and any students at USC who are looking for some good classes. There's no midterm. There's no final.
No.
We have some amazing presentations, and he does grill you hard, but it's such an amazing learning experience.
That's right.
You learn actual real life skills like public speaking, how to hold your own, how to, defend your position and stances against so many opinions. It's been so fantastic.
Well, good. I'm glad. Yeah, it's real life stuff that you're going to need to know.
Absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely. So your time as a professor and, how you started off surrounded by a family of entrepreneurs. Did you ever see yourself going down a professional academic route?
Never.
So how did it first come to you that, you wanted to take it? Because where I come from, for example, I come from a lineage of a community called Marwadis. Marwadis come from a place called Rajasthan, which is a state in India. And Marwadis are known for their business acumen.
Okay.
So much so that my ancestors, my forefathers, were amongst the first 3 families invited by the then King of Nepal in 1851 to come to Nepal, set up businesses, just because of how well they were known for their business acumen.
Wow.
Now, growing up in a family like that, I always heard that, you don't work for anybody. You might go and get an internship and, check it out. But the whole idea is you keep it going in the family and you keep creating. So how did you transition from that creator role to, being part of a system?
Universities they're an interesting breed. Especially when you're a professor, because as a professor, they give you a lot of autonomy.
Okay.
There are rules you have to follow, and you have to, do things according to a certain way. But overall, the way you teach, the way you present is up to you for the most part. And And that's where my creative muscle came in, where I can teach whatever I want to teach, and that I can.
Sorry.
Oh, it's okay. I could teach whatever I want to teach in the way I want to teach it, and so it makes it really easy. So it's easy in the sense that I have autonomy. I'm very entrepreneurial, or I should say intrapreneurial. So I'm an entrepreneur within a corporate or academic structure.
Wow. So that's the best kind of entrepreneurship, no? When you have the benefits of being part of a large organization, the capital, the safety, the security, and the ability to experiment as you will.
Yes, but along with that comes the bureaucracy and the headaches and trying to explain to academics how this is practical.
So did you never ever have that feeling that, let this be, I'm better off just by myself, where I'm answerable to no one and I set my own rules?
Yes, absolutely. Which kind of is a great segue to a subject that I talk about in class all the time, which is when students say, I want to find a job that I'm passionate about. Okay, great. First I ask them about what they're passionate about, and it's surprising how so many people say, I don't know what the job would be that I would be passionate about, but I know, like art. I don't know if it's art until I see it. I don't know if I'll be passionate about it until I do it. Well, find your passion outside of work and figure out what you're good at and flex that muscle. And if you become really good at it, you'll become passionate about it.
True.
And I mean, the nation's leading tax attorneys, when they were in high school, they didn't say, oh my God, if I can just interpret the IRS code, oh my God, that would be dope, as the kids would say. No, they said, I want to do this, I want to do that, I want to, maybe even not even what type of job, but I want to make a shit ton of money, I want to do this, doing whatever. When they figured out that they were good at it, that's when they actually found a passion. Yeah. And so even though I'm frustrated at times by the constraints of academia, going in and speaking to the smartest, most driven people on the planet on a daily basis is amazing. I have friends who make a ton more money than me that come onto campus and they say, wow, the energy here is incredible.
It is. USC is the words can't express it.
Exactly. And, a lot of them, although they make more money, we're like, oh, so what are you doing in class today? Tell me about some of the interesting ideas your students are bringing up to you. And what I'm willing to give up is a bit of autonomy and probably a lot of money.
And I think it's a very important thing you bring up, which is, what are you willing to give up?
Right.
Because nothing comes free, right?
Life is all trade-off.
Exactly.
You want to be an investment bro? Great. Are you willing to shut down your personal life and sell your soul to the devil, of course? Are you willing to do that? And if you are, okay. But if you're not, then you have to choose something else.
Absolutely. So that's quite a journey,
Yes.
From first working with your father,
right,
being the man who arbitrated cheese,
yes,
and then moving to real estate, then as a lobbyist,
right,
and then while you were pursuing your MBA to get the opportunity to be a professor,
right,
to be where you are. That's a phenomenal journey. Could you maybe share with some of our listeners what have been some of the highlights as well as the lowlights of the journey?
The highlights have been and continue to be the people I meet.
You meet some cool people every day.
I meet some cool people.
So you're like Forrest Gump, right?
I am like Forrest Gump. Not that bright, but really cool shit happens to me. But cool people start with Judith, who's the lady that is the janitor in my building.
Mm-hmm.
We speak every day
Mm-hmm.
to students in my class, to to very big time entrepreneurs.
Yeah, your Rolodex of billionaires with a B.
Billionaires with a B.
And sir, I want to take a minute to shout out, how much I respect you, because I read a quote when I was a kid that what defines a man is how he treats people who can't do anything for them.
Right.
Right. It's about whether you treat the janitor with the same respect of the CEO.
Right.
And I think you're the living embodiment of that, with Judith Skates especially.
Well, yes. And I was taught that by my father and my grandfather. My grandfather, who lived with us, my mother's father, had to drop out of school at about the 6th grade to help raise his 8 younger brothers and sisters, was in Italian, was functionally illiterate, couldn't read anything in English, and was an immigrant. And he was Italian back in the 40s and 50s. They were really made fun of and harassed. And so I learned from them that, as my father put it, every single one of us puts our pants on the same way. And that's what I do. I genuinely treat people, regardless of who they are, with the same curiosity.
Amazing. So coming back to the highlights and lowlights of your journey, what do you think are some of those very defining moments?
Highlights would be being offered a job without quite honestly applying for it many times. Meeting people, again, just I'm a people person. Lowlights would be the lowlights are when you start your business, cash flow is a problem. And so in 2000, there was another recession, and figuring out, how am I going to make money? How am I going to feed my children?
And you have 5.
And just 5, yes. And so the unbelievable stress are definitely lowlights, low points. But overall, I'm going to say everyone has low points. What you need to do is just have more high points, and you have to create your own high points. And sometimes you have to manufacture them. I'm a big reader, and so I tell everyone, I recommend Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl.
Man's Search for Meaning.
Yes. And Viktor Frankl was an Austrian psychologist who had a wonderful life in Austria. And then the Nazis came in and basically he's Jewish, or was Jewish, took him and his family to the concentration camps. His entire family was wiped out. And in this book, he talks about the horrid conditions that he was under, and yet every day he tried to find something to give him the meaning to continue on a day-to-day basis.
Wow.
And that book is pretty powerful. And so I look at all setbacks as not in that respect per se, or maybe in that respect. What can I learn from this?
Absolutely.
What can I learn from it? How can I better myself?
Amazing. And I think there's so many people today in the state of the economy we are in that are trying to figure out how to put food on the table.
Right.
Do you have any advice for any of our listeners who might be, struggling with financial insecurity?
Right. So I would do a few things. The first one is dig the well before you're thirsty, which is go out and talk to people now before you need anything. The second thing is there's no shame in getting a job, whatever it is. A person has to do what a person has to do to feed themselves and feed their family, and there's absolutely no shame behind getting a job at McDonald's or a retail job. you have to do what you have to do.
Absolutely.
If you want to be an entrepreneur throughout that, then you have to figure out, okay, how do I have the energy and the time to work this job, and then afterwards work on my side hustle. So work from 5 to 9 on you, 9 to 5 for somebody else, and then 5 to 9 again on you again, which is really, really hard.
Is that something you did?
Yes, absolutely. And switching mindsets is hard sometimes, and it's taxing. But again, sometimes you just got to do what you got to do.
So what was a day in your life like back then?
Right. Today?
Back then.
Oh, back then? Oh, so there was a time where I was still doing real estate and doing the lobbying at the same time. And so sending out emails and calls before I would show up to the office or a meeting for the lobbying, work on the lobbying stuff at lunchtime, return calls. And sometimes it wasn't a traditional office, so I could stay out of the office and maybe work a little bit longer, work as long as I could before I had a code switch again back to lobbying, and then come home and work on paperwork. So my days were really long.
So what time did you start today?
Today?
No, what time did you start today back then?
Oh.
Were you one of those 4 a.m., 5 a.m.
No. I tried to do that so badly. I tried to do that, but I can't. So back then, and even up to today, my day starts at about between 6 and 6:30.
Come on, sir. That's quite the morning.
Well, I guess if you're a college student, yes.
So 6:30 you used to start your day.
Yeah.
And what time would you usually wrap up?
Midnight 1.
Wow. And you used to be working from morning till
night.
Wow. That's some work ethic.
6 to 7 days a week. Just maybe on the weekends, not that long, but still would work.
How would you, what was your favorite way to, unwind? What would you do when you were not working?
Read. I would read, and that would definitely put me to sleep.
Your 3 favorite books?
My 3 favorite books. So first one is, I have so many favorite books, I don't know if I can pick one, is The Four Agreements by Don Miguel Ruiz.
The Four Agreements.
The Four Agreements.
What's that about?
It's about, 150 pages. Just kidding. Thank you. I'm here all week. The Four Agreements is by a gentleman named Don Miguel Ruiz, and he said that in our mind we have all these voices that scream really loud at us in negative tones, and basically they say you're a martyr or you're not good enough. And to quiet those voices, you have to make 4 agreements with yourself. The first one is be impeccable with your word. So say what you mean and mean what you say.
And do what you say.
And do what you say, yes. Make no assumptions. Don't take anything personally, good or bad. And finally, always do your best. If you do those 4 things, it will, for me, it shut those voices up.
Wow.
Real transformative book. The other book, I can see it. The Alchemist.
The Alchemist. Yes.
Have you read that one?
I've not read it yet.
The Alchemist is a great.
It's on my list though.
Yeah, it's a great parable. And then third book. Again, there's so many. If you want to talk about entrepreneurship, Shoe Dog by Phil Knight.
That's a nice one too.
Yeah.
Yes. And I especially admire how Nike's approach was in the early days. I saw one of the manifestos they sent to each of the employees about the values they embody and how they had to work. It's phenomenal.
Right.
It's phenomenal. And coming back to The Alchemist, it's about transmutation, right? About converting energy into and leveraging from whatever life throws at you.
Correct. Yes, I'm not going to spoil it. You have to read it.
Okay. We'll do that. All right. So moving on, you recently made headlines, and you made headlines for a very, very good reason recently.
Oh, okay.
You brought the DOGG Snoop Dogg.
Snoop Dogg. I had him come to, in fact, I had him come to your class.
Yes.
BAP
yes.
452 feasibility. I mean, it was he and I, our class of about 54 people and 800 of our friends.
Absolutely. And he was also honored with the Lloyd Greif Center Entrepreneur of the Year Award.
Correct. He was. I mean, it was a great event. And Snoop really gave another side of who he is that I think a lot of people didn't realize.
I didn't realize the side of that. I've always seen him on YouTube saying, smoke weed every day.
Yeah.
And here he was talking about peace and love, about being around people who are way better than he is. And, it just showed the level of humility and, just makes you see and understand that what you see on the outside is not always true.
That's right. And going back to my curiosity, because what you see on the outside isn't always true, but once you get to know somebody, you're like, oh, wow, this is incredible. Incredible.
Yeah.
So it was a great event. I think everyone was happy, including Snoop, most importantly Snoop's. But it was a great event. What did you think?
Oh, it was phenomenal. I think it was very, very well executed. The kind of conversations we had just the right people talking about how a entrepreneur has to be a brand as well.
Right.
How they can leverage their brand. One thing I learned from Snoop is that whenever he goes into a brand deal and he knows, he's gonna uplift the brand a lot, he straight away says equity. And I loved what he said. He's like, I know what I bring to the table, and if I don't get what I deserve, I'm off.
That's right. I know he can't do it with every brand. Some brands are just way bigger than him, but for the brands that he's involved with, equity, and that's where it's at. It's looking at the long term and not the short term.
Of course. So can you please walk us through what that experience was like, and behind the scenes, what was it like to bring Snoop Dogg to USC?
So it was about. We had been talking about it so let me back up. So Snoop and I have a mutual friend.
Okay.
And that mutual friend is in the entertainment business. And he came up to me and said, hey, I have someone to speak in your class. Now, I always am approached by people who say, I have someone that'd be great for your class. A friend of mine, he borrowed $1 million from his parents and he really, really struggled, and man, he hit it. That's boring. And plus, come on. Who cares about that? There's no struggle. Trust me. So he came up to me one day, he goes, hey, I have a speaker for your class. And I thought, oh my God, okay, here we go. Who is it? And he goes, Snoop Dogg. And I said, oh, I'm listening. And he goes, yeah, let's do something. So once we finally got the okay from his people, okay, let's do it. Then we had to find a date. And the date was a bit of a math equation based on his schedule, based on Thursday night football, because he does stuff for Thursday night football, based on the Lakers schedule, because he loves going to the home games. So we had that part of it. So that was kind of interesting. Then it was entrepreneur as the brand. And so he, when you deal with A-list celebrities, they want no surprises, zero surprises. So they said, okay, submit all your questions. And he was there for an hour. And although he was there for an hour, I gave him 40 questions that I could potentially ask. And then his people said, well, if you take questions, I said, we'll take questions from the audience. And they said, no, because people are stupid. The thing that how bad would it have been if somebody got up on the mic and said, hey, Snoop, where do I get the best weed in LA? Right. He didn't want any of that. And so I solicited questions out, from the students. And so everything has to be, run through people to make sure that, again, it's on brand for him. the timing of, okay, you know, when does he come to campus? When does he come to campus? Does he leave campus? The fact that, you know, he's going to be there for an hour. He can't smoke. We are a
smoke-free campus.
A smoke-free campus. And so how do we make sure that the timing is such that we honor that and honor him? And we were able to take care of that. And then probably the most interesting part, I mean, you were there, right? I do a lot of interviews. And when I do interview, I always want to prep the person I'm with just for a few minutes, just to get a vibe. And I begged his people, please, just, at first it started with 20 minutes and then it was 15. I said, just 5 minutes. I'll go wherever he's at for 5 minutes. And they're like, no. So the thing that probably made me the most nervous was when Snoop walked on stage and we dapped it up.
Yeah.
That was the first time I met Snoop.
No way.
Yes.
That was the first time you interacted with him?
Yes.
That's crazy.
Yeah, he dapped me up. The other three guys, he shook their hands.
Okay.
Because as you can see, I'm from the streets.
You're the real G.
Yeah.
So the first time you meet Snoop was in front of 800 people.
Yes.
And I mean, I know you have a vast network, but was he like one of the biggest A-list kind of people you had met in your life?
He was definitely the A-list of A-list celebrities I've ever met.
Wow. And you can't even be, starstruck on stage in front of 800 of your students.
No, exactly. And I mean, you saw me leading up to that. And do you remember what the one thing that I stressed out most about?
Oh, your outfit.
Yeah. I had to look drippy up there, right?
You looked amazing. I saw you when you were walking with your daughter to the ballroom. And
right.
Yeah, you looked awesome.
I know. It was, yes, but a miracle of God that happened. But hey, yes.
Thanks to ChatGPT and shout out Sam Altman.
That's right. Thank you, Sam Altman. Keep training that AI. So that was I wasn't nervous at all. And then it was like, okay, Snoop is in the dressing room. I'm about to go out. There's 800 people. Everything rides on me. I'm the one that can make this awesome, or I can make it okay. And hopefully I made it awesome.
Oh, it was amazing. It was amazing.
Yeah. And so I felt a lot of stress before going out. So I went backstage and just kind of meditated for a moment.
Okay.
And just closed my eyes and took deep breaths and was present in the moment. And then I got out on stage and that didn't bother me at all. And then Snoop walked out and was like, and I don't know if you saw, but I think both he and I were nervous and or uncomfortable. When, he sat right next to me like this. And when I asked him a question, he had the dark sunglasses on, but he kind of looked in my direction when he answered, and he was very nice and professional, nothing wrong. But then when both he and I started to relax, we started vibing. He started looking me in the eye when he was answering.
You could see his eyes through the glasses? Okay.
Yeah. And it's like, okay, here we go. This is awesome.
Wow. And I know you guys dabbed it up a total of 3 times.
3 times we dapped it up.
Your son and his son played for the Dolphins?
Well, my son played for the Huntington Beach Junior All-American football team, the Dolphins, and his son played for the Rowland Heights Raiders.
Okay.
And jokingly, I told Snoop, I'm sure you remember this, but 20 years ago, your son played my son in Junior All-American football. He came down to Huntington Beach, and he looked at me, he goes, the Dolphins, right? And I go, yes, the Dolphins. Wow. He, of course, did not remember me introducing myself, but the fact that he remembered that was pretty awesome.
Nice. So how else was the experience? Because that definitely got you a lot of street cred. I know your parents were there, your daughter was there.
Right.
What was that aspect of it like, on a more personal level?
On a more personal level, it was a bit surreal. my parents, like all parents, ask, "Oh, so what are you doing? What's going on?" I said, "Hey, I'm having Snoop Dogg come in. Do you want to come?" And my mom, without my 82-year-old mother, without saying a word, was like, "Yeah, we'll come." If I could tell a funny story about my mother. So after we spoke, we went off stage. My family came up, and I go, "Snoop, my mom is here. My mom and dad are here." And he goes, "Come on, Mama Nap, come on." And so my mom comes in, and Snoop, ever the gentleman, takes out his hand, and my mom goes, "Can I give you a hug?" And so they were like hugging, and they took pictures together. It was so wonderful. So personally, it was like, wow, I gave my parents something that they could not have them get themselves.
Wow. That must have been an amazing feeling.
It was an amazing feeling to say, my parents are very, very comfortable. They want for nothing. They can, if they want to buy something, they can buy it, but they couldn't buy that experience. And I was able to give it to them. And that's really what made me happy.
Wow. And Mr. Lloyd Greif was there?
Lloyd was there. Yes, he had a great time as well. He presented the Entrepreneur of the Year award, and so he was very happy with all of it. He too, before the event, didn't realize how entrepreneurial Snoop was.
Really?
Yes, and so he was very happy about it as well.
He gave a very, very long list of Snoop's different business interests.
Right. Yes,
and it was interesting to see that, without even mentioning cannabis once, Mr. Greif went on for a good amount of time.
He did. I mean, just business after business after business. It's truly amazing. I mean, he is absolutely deserving of the award, not because of his fame, but actually because of being a man of action.
Wow. So, that's so awesome. If I know you love to ask this question a lot.
Yes.
So 5 years from today.
Yes.
If you were to look back at your interaction with Snoop,
right,
what would you remember?
I'll remember how warm and caring he was. I'll remember that he has a very similar mantra as I do, which is lead with love. That's my mantra, but he said, love everyone, love everything. I'll remember him saying, surround yourself by people who are smarter. Let's see, what else will I remember? Those are my big takeaways from the event.
Wow, beautiful. Anything else you might want to add on the topic of the DOWG at USC?
Nothing that. The only thing that I would add is that opportunities are everywhere, and this is like a much bigger thing, much bigger than Snoop. Opportunities are everywhere, and people do truly want to help you if they like you, and if you show them that. And if you don't ask for anything, people will truly want to help you. There was no reason why my friend, he gained nothing from saying, "Oh, do you want Snoop to appear?" But I think it's because I've always been kind to him. I've always asked what he wants first, and it worked out.
Wow, that's beautiful. So, what's one piece of advice, before we close off, that you would like to give to aspiring entrepreneurs who are listening today?
Just one?
Sure, we can take more. We have time.
Let's see. So one of them is a lot of people don't start, especially. So again, let me back up. My generation has messed up a lot of things for your generation.
Okay.
And, to come to a place like USC, you have to be virtually perfect. With your GPA, with having 132,000 hours of volunteer service, saving an entire village in sub-Saharan Africa. It's unbelievable the pressure that put you under. And my biggest advice for anyone is it's okay to fail. It's okay to fail. You'll learn more from failure than you will from winning. So many people are afraid to fail. So many people are afraid, period.
Yeah.
Fear. I have fear in my life every day, depending on what I'm doing. And what I try to do, and I'm not always successful, is I wrap my arms around that fear and I just push through. Some days I win, some days I lose, but more often than not, I push through. So I think those are the two big things.
Amazing. And that comes back to the whole idea of being an alchemist. You take the fear and you transform it into something bigger.
Right. Exactly.
Wow. That's beautiful. I think that's an amazing note to wrap up our conversation with.
Well, thank you very much.
Thank you so much for being on the show, Professor Napoli. We would love to have you back to talk more about you and your amazing journey.
Sure.
I know Professor Napoli has way more where that came from.
I have more. I
can't tell you about how many class presentations we've gone through where we've just, quizzed him question after question.
I know.
And he's shared his wealth of experience.
Anytime, any place, I'm here for you, Adi. Thank you so much for being, for doing this and for inviting me. I really, truly appreciate it. And you can always ask. My door is always open.
Cheers. So thank you guys so much for tuning into the Human Truth channel, where no topic is off the table. If you enjoy raw, authentic conversations, please, we'd love you to subscribe and follow the channel. And if you have a guest that you would like to see over the next episode or a topic you'd like to dive deeper into, please drop it in the comments below. My name is Aditya Rajwardhan, and it's been a pleasure to have you on the Human Truth channel. Satnam.